Howdy! I just want to say really quickly thank you for 5,000 subscribers. And I also want to explain why there's not like a proper geology video this week. For the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, I've been driving all around the southern US, collecting footage and in-person dialogue for a lot of future videos, essentially stockpiling. So I didn't have a lot of time to edit, but I do assure you there will be a proper geology video next week, and we'll get back to that 2-week schedule. But this week, I kind of wanted to just say thank you for 5,000 subscribers and briefly go over my perfect Western US geology road trip. Okay, so let's get into this perfect Western geology road trip. For my purposes, I'm going to start in Seattle, but you can kind of pick up anywhere along this trip because it is a loop, essentially. So, I got my really poor handwriting notes here. Let's go through it. So, you want to start in Seattle, and you're going to go to Mount Rainier because I think it's the best example of a classic stratovolcano anywhere in the US, and it's a great place to see some glaciers. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but from there, you're going to drive over the Cascades and go to Palouse Falls, which is a great waterfall in eastern central Washington, where you can see a lot of exposed basalt from ancient basalt floods that happened multi-millions of years ago and are believed to be related to the Yellowstone hotspot and where it once was. Then you're going to want to go to the strangely named Hell's Canyon between Idaho and Oregon. I don't think it's hell, it's actually quite beautiful. It's the deepest canyon in the US, and it's at or near the western extent of the Rockies within the lower 48. Next, you're going to want to go to Craters of the Moon, Idaho. It's a great example of a younger volcanic field, some really cool basalt there and a couple craters. It's along the way to the next spot, so I figure you might as well just stop there because it's really cool. Up next, you're going to want to go to Yellowstone. Do I even need to explain this one? It's like geology heaven. From there, cut south, go to the Tetons. It's a really sharp range in the Rockies, which means that it's a lot younger than those southern Rockies you see in like southern Colorado that are really rounded. It's a really good example of just some epic mountain building, definitely worth the see. Next, you're going to want to cut south to the Uinta Range in northern Utah. This is also part of the Rockies, but it's weird because it trends east-west instead of the Rockies' usual north-south, and it has this weird kind of pink color to it. Really unique, definitely worth the sight. From here, the obvious. You're going to want to cut down into southern Utah and northern Arizona, where there is just a big, beautiful ton of red rock scenery. Depending on the location and the chemistry of the sandstone, limestone, and other underlying rocks, you're gonna get vastly different formations, so it's kind of just worth seeing whatever catches your eye. Personally, I would go to Arches, Bryce Canyon, the Grand Canyon, and Zion, but you can kind of choose to go wherever you want in this big region. It will not disappoint. Up next, we got kind of an optional one because it's a little out of the way, but don't sleep on New Mexico. Go see Shiprock. It's an ancient part of a volcano. It's actually part of a volcano's neck, which is where it's funneling up magma from the magma chamber into the actual mountain building section of the volcano. And that mountain building section of the volcano eroded away and revealed that volcanic neck, which is Shiprock. Looks very ancient, very cool. Go check it out. Speaking of very cool, the thing that sort of built my channel, talking about Arizona Sky Islands, you're going to want to cut south to go to Chiricahua National Monument. It's a giant volcanic collapse that further eroded down, revealing thousands of these tan rock pillars called hoodoos. It's an incredible place with a bunch of unique species. You gotta check it out. I think it is one of the most slept on locations anywhere in the US. From there, you're gonna wanna do a long drive to Southern California near the Palm Springs area. You're gonna wanna either go and take the tram or swing around the front side of San Jacinto Mountain. It's a huge piece of exposed granite, and it's also one of the most prominent mountains in the lower 48. Prominence is essentially like how tall a mountain is relative to where it kind of sprouts out of the ground. And I think it's what we should use to represent how tall mountains are instead of sea level. So it's absolutely massive in person, and it's part of the transverse ranges of Southern California. So it represents this east-west rotation of the mountains in that area because of a bend in the notorious San Andreas Fault. From here, you're going to want to go to another notorious location if you're a geology nerd, Death Valley. What a great example of basin and range horsed and graben topography. You can also see salt flats, sand dunes, active volcanism. It's just like a playground if you're into rocks. You got to go to Death Valley. From Death Valley, you're going to want to cut further north near the Mammoth Lakes area. Mammoth itself is a giant volcano, and surrounding it is a giant super caldera that hosts the Long Valley Super Volcano. Yeah, a lot of people don't know there is a super volcano in California. If you want me to do a video on that, let me know. But because of a series of unique faults and fractures in the earth, a lot of magma has been able to build up there, so you can see a lot of hot springs in the area. And also, if you go behind Mammoth Mountain, there's a lot of toxic gas that's being spewed out, killing all the trees in the area, which looks really alien. And don't worry, if you're only there for a little bit, it's not gonna harm you. From there, you're going to want to cut up to the piece de resistance, in my opinion, Lake Tahoe. It's a great example of a lake that formed on a fault zone, so it's especially deep because of that. And you can also see the surrounding Sierras, which are in and of themselves probably the coolest mountain in the US when it comes to their formation. They used to be ancient volcanoes, eroded down, further uplifted from movement along the San Andreas Fault. Really cool. Now I know at this point you're like, dang, I don't have this much gas money. This is like a proposed trip. You can make your loop smaller. We're almost there though. You're going to want to cut up further north from Lake Tahoe and go to Lassen Volcanic National Park. Kind of similar to Yellowstone, just way smaller in scale. You can see fumaroles and a bunch of other hydrothermal features here in a more volcanic-y setting. It's also the southernmost major volcano in the Cascade Range, and there's way less people that visit, so if you kind of want that charm of Yellowstone with way less people in your face, go to Lassen. From here, we're cutting up to another lake, the infamous Crater Lake National Park. This is the deepest lake in the US, clocking in a little deeper than 2,000 feet, and it was formed when a massive cascade stratovolcano collapsed in on itself and formed this very deep pit, which was filled in by snow and rainwater, resulting in the epic lake that exists today. Finishing off the trip, we're finally going to go out to the coast. The Oregon coast is absolutely legendary. This is a place where you can see a lot of evidence for accreted terrains. That's essentially when old islands sloughed off onto the North American continent. So you can see a lot of that, and it's also just stunning and epic views the whole way. From here, you're gonna wanna pat yourself on the back because you're on your way back to Seattle and you just completed one of the most epic geologic road trips anywhere on Earth. Thank you guys for watching this video. As I stated previously, I'm going to get back to the geology content a week from now on Sunday like usual. So thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.